it's interesting, actually. I think looking at it, I can't remember exactly, but I think it's 2009, 2010, 2011. I can't remember which it's for each of you. But all these blogs were started around the same time, been running for about 5 years. So yeah, I think that's interesting in itself. So I'm going to be relatively strict about the 5 minutes because I do really want us to have some chance to discuss between each other on the panel and then to open it up for questions at the end. So Kina, could you start?
Thank you, Katie. So I'm Kina of Kina Reads, and my motivation. So in 2010, my blog is mostly about my reading, my own personal reading. I've been an avid reader all my life, and because I grew up in an African literary tradition, I cover a lot of African books, and I'm very, very partial to African women writers. So that's my motivation. I love you guys. So that's my motivation. So basically, so I tend to cover African books, translated fiction. I like to also look at international fiction, but also African American writers. So I tend to do a lot of book lists about books I want to. I think I'm the only one who does book lists about books I haven't read yet. So I'm doing that. So and I'm working on a massive post of about 150 African and Black women writers. So but that's my motivation. It's very personal to me. This all is very personal. What was the question? I had a bottle of beer before coming. So.
So were there any other online spaces or blogs that inspired you to start this?
I'm not sure that when I started whether Bookshy had started, but she is an inspiration, and so is Brittle Paper. When I thought about starting, I think there's a specific world of, the book blogosphere, especially the American book blogosphere. There was a particular corner of people who deal with translated fiction, and I really liked how they were writing about books from their own experiences, and so that's what inspired me. I think I wanted to add my voice to that collective. I wanted to talk about African writing within that collective. So that's how I was motivated. Measures of success. This is very difficult because I'm an underachieving blogger. I think I spend more time thinking about the books than actually writing them. So I wouldn't say that I'm successful. I'm struggling. I'm a struggling blogger.
I don't think you'd be here if you weren't successful.
But, and I think it has something to do with my own sense of disorganization. But then there's also so much that is going on in African literature that I get overwhelmed with what I want to say. So sometimes I say a lot of stuff on Twitter that I really should be saying on my blog. But that's it. I think I'm okay where the success is concerned. Yeah, clap for me. Is there any other question?
And do you have a sense of where your readers are? Do you have statistics
My
about
readers,
that?
it's very interesting because if I was a blogger who was interested in gaming the system for views, there are some African writers that are always taught, like Shoyinka's Telephone Conversation, and the older writers, right? So my readers tend to be coming from. I have a lot of readership from Nigeria, from Kenya, from South Africa, from the United States, from Europe, especially England. And then there are times when I get an onslaught of people, and I can tell that, for instance, in the Philippines, somebody there is teaching Luis Honwanes Who Killed Manji Dog. So African, you'll find that a lot of people come to the blogs, and I'm sure it's the same with you, from schools. And that is always nice, but what I am always wondering is whether African readers outside of schools are also visiting the blogs. But there's a lot of academic interest. I know that in Legon, in the University of Ghana, for instance, they frequently talk about my blog and other blogs. So, but I'm always interested because the history of African literature is very much tied to curriculum. So I'm always interested in whether we are growing a readership outside of academic spaces. But that's, yeah. I'm done.
Thank you. And yeah, I should have perhaps said at the beginning that unfortunately Aini Adoro from Brittle Paper isn't able to join us. She had to rush off to catch her flight. So we're all a bit sad about that, but I'm sure there'll be lots of references to Brittle Paper through this conversation anyway. So Zara, could you tell us a bit about your motivations for starting Bookshare?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My motivation is more selfish. I started my blog in December of 2011, and I had just been in Lagos for 3 months doing my fieldwork for my PhD. And I need an excuse not to do my PhD. So after long days of doing interviews and doing fieldwork and interviewing people and just being frustrated, I needed some sort of way to escape from my PhD. And also being back in Nigeria, those 3 months, my way of escaping was reading, and reading a lot of African novels. I came to African literature really late. I still remember the first African novel I read. I was 19, and it was actually technically not a Nigerian novel. It was written by Karen King Aribisala, and it was Our Wife and Other Stories. And I read it because of I was interested in understanding what foreign wife's experience of Nigeria would be like, because my mother's foreign, not because of I'm a foreign wife. And so got into it really late. In the first 3 months in Lagos, I was just doing a lot of reading. And then it was there's so many books in Nigeria that I have access to that I didn't have access to while I was in London, but also that there was so much more than the greats, Achebe, Shoyinka. And I also had a lot of friends asking me, what are you doing in Nigeria? So I pretty much started the blog as a way to just write about the books that I was reading, but write about different types of books. My blog also doesn't really do literature. I'm a fan of lists, but I'm a really visual person. So my lists are actually more based on book covers, because another thing I do is I'm very judgy. I know I probably shouldn't admit this in a literary festival, but I judge books by their covers. I'm very obsessed with the design of a book cover and what thought has gone into it and who designs it and why. I don't know how this passion came up, but it's something that as I've continued doing the blog, I've gotten more interested in. And so as a side, I have a Tumblr which is dedicated purely to African book covers. So I just scour different types of books and I just put them up. I'm also there's specific types of genre I'm interested in. So I'm interested in fantasy. I'm interested in young adult fiction and children's literature as well. So another thing I started doing was curating lists about different genres of African literature. So I'd create lists about crime fiction or curate lists about romance novels. And then from there, I was also, because I'm a geographer by training, I'm also just interested in different regions. So I would also just curate lists about books from different African countries. What kind of books can you get? What do people in Cameroon write about? What kind of books can you get from, I don't know, Angola? And I was also interested in translated fiction. So I would do lists about Lusophone, literature, Francophone, and so forth. The next one was success. I'm quite a very erratic blogger, in the sense that I blog when I'm in the mood and when I feel like it or when I get an idea. And so it's really hard for me to measure success as well for my blog, because I don't count numbers. I mean, if you go on my Facebook page, it's really, it's very small. I'm also very terrible at marketing myself. So in terms of success, I don't know, but I would say there's some shocks. So it's the shocks when you realize the types of people that read or access the blog. So a few months ago, I got an email from a professor that was either in Yale or Harvard, saying that he wanted to do a lecture on Boko Haram and the missing girls, and if I had any recommendations about books around terrorism in Nigeria. And I was really shocked that someone from Yale or Harvard would contact me, because even though I have an academic background, my blog is not academic. Or I get emails from readers in China, which again is quite shocking to me. And in terms of readers, unsurprisingly, I don't know, a lot of my readers are from Europe. So I have a large number from England, from Canada, from the United States. I get really sad that I don't actually have that many Nigerian followers, or that I know of. I think the highest African country I have is South Africa. And there's also random, like, weird countries like Russia. I would get following from Russia, and I don't understand why. And the last question was?
About whether there were any other blogs that inspired you to start.
Actually, there were 2 blogs that inspired me when I started, and it was Kinnah Reads, and the second one was Amy Reads. And she was a Canadian who read a lot of African literature. So when I started blogging, it was those 2 blogs that I would always go to find out and to know what was going on, what was being said. And it was also, I'm going to admit it now, I also did not want to copy what everyone else was doing when I first started. So I didn't want to replicate what Kinnah Reads was doing, and I didn't want to replicate what Amy Reads was doing. And I also wanted to find a space to write whatever it is, the random weird things that I'm interested in. So I think
No, that's great. And yeah, lots of stuff that we'll come back to in the course of the conversation. But yeah, Emmanuel.
Hi, everyone. So I co-founded Saraba Magazine in 2009 with Dami Ajayi, and we were undergraduates at Obafemi Awolowo University, and he was trained as a doctor, I was trained as a lawyer. And we used to meet at the English department foyer randomly, like accidentally, to look at what people were writing, because people usually wrote and pasted on boards and notice boards. And this came out every week. And this became kind of a, I don't know, Monday morning ritual that you go to the English department lobby that had the best and most famous board at that time, Megaphone. And you congregate and discuss literature, And I always met Dami there, so my department was this way, Dami's department was that way, and then we met in the middle to discuss literature. And that was a follow-up to a seminar or so, a workshop, I think, that I had organized with 2 other friends earlier, and Dami had been the first applicant. And so he began to come to my house in the staff quarters, and he began to eat my mom's food. And we would discuss literature. And one day it struck us. This was late 2008. We had been sending out submissions. He was writing. We were all writing poetry. Really terrible writing, terrible writing, and fiction and all kinds of stuff. And we were sending it out to every obscure journal in the US and the UK that you could imagine. And we were getting, of course, rejections every single day, or, steadily. And so we saw this PDF magazine called, I think, Writer's Beats or something like that. And we said to ourselves, hey, we can do this. We can just simply publish all this stuff that is not being published. And we had friends, Ayobami Adebayo, all these guys were writing great stuff that we could also publish, right? And we had a magazine. We could, start a magazine. And so this was around November 2008, and then in February 2009, we paid, probably 2,500 Naira or something, and hosted a website, and that was it. And the day the first issue came out, El Nathan, Abubakar, like a lot of guys that are now at the forefront of what's happening now were our first, contributors. And it was really exciting. Dami came to my house. It was Valentine's Day. We basically celebrated Valentine's Day by publishing Saraba. And of course, we had no girlfriends. We were trying to woo some girls, but that didn't work. And so that was the beginning of Saraba Magazine. And I mean, of course, it's remarkably different from the experiences that have been described here, because we are aspiring to be a literary magazine. But I think that what's similar is that this work exists online, and there are certain metrics with which you kind of measure the success. For example, we've published almost 30 publications now. It's kind of astonishing to me. I can't even believe that we've done this for 6 years, and we have 17 issues of the magazine. We have almost 10 poetry chapbooks, and we have the special issues that we've been publishing. And so in all, we've published almost 300 writers in the magazine, and that's kind of staggering. I can't even believe that. But I think that that's one way to say, okay, we are trying to do something here, and this is the beginning of something important. And then yesterday I tried to check the metrics, and I saw that it's kind of cool that there are a lot of Nigerians reading Saraba now, going to visiting our website, and so it's 50-50 between the US and Nigeria, and then you have UK following in a close third, and other obscure countries. But I'm so happy that Nigeria is, sometimes some months is the first, some months is the second between the US and Nigeria, and I think that that's significant because to end this, that's their terms of reference, and I think that's clearly making the statement that they are in it for the long term, all right? And so when, for instance, the New York Review of Books talks about a 50-year argument after 50 years of publishing this journal, they talk about a 50-year argument. I'm thinking, if someone starts and says, okay, we're going to only review books.
I'd like to know that they have a track record. So there are even bloggers who look at translated lit. There has to be a track record, because I'm no longer interested. I mean, I now understand that other people who have lived these lives and who can better comment on it can and are willing and are commenting. So I don't do those things anymore.
I'm going to Caribbean literature because I want to learn about my heritage as well. So I want to.
And what you find out is a lot of bloggers in African literary spaces are like that. Like they say, okay, well, I just want to do it at my time, so you don't really get serious with it, and not just the financial motivation now. No, there's something if you get money for something, there's a level of seriousness you put into it. So, and sometimes it happens that maybe there's a book you need to review. I'll put it to tomorrow. So it becomes erratic, and people don't really take it seriously. We don't even know when she'll publish again. So let's just keep the blog to one side until. So the question I really want to ask is, how does this really work? As in, would you prefer to say, okay, I'll monetize my blog so that I can get more serious with it, so that at least I can do more, people will take me more seriously? Or see, I just enjoy my. I don't want people to take me seriously. Maybe people should go and take other people seriously. But because if you say I don't want people to take me seriously, and every blogger does the same, nobody does any work, and then everything is just there. So don't you think money should come in so that people can really do serious work and really get these things out? Because money makes you serious and really work on it. So what do you think about that?
Okay, should we answer that? My first comment, she's going to make a comment, but there's this thing about if bloggers are not compensated, they are not going to be serious. There's this other blogger he does translated fiction. He just put up a post about scaling back because of the time that goes into writing a post. So I will typically use 2 to 3 hours to do a post. And that doesn't count that if it's a review, I would have been thinking about it for like a week or two. So the assumption that because we are not compensated, we're not going to take it seriously, scratch that. Because it takes a lot of time. Even list posts, even doing a list post that is a lot of fun, and if you put up a list, people will look at that more than a review. It takes a lot of time. So I don't know what other bloggers are doing, but the sort of book bloggers that we are and the ones that we follow, it takes time to do the stuff that we do, and we put in the time. So maybe if there was money, it would be like, maybe I don't have to go to work, but there's still the time. So it's not an issue of not taking it seriously, because I take it very seriously. Every single word that I put there, I would take it very, very seriously, and I don't know.
And I would like to add that, I'll speak for myself, but I'm assuming it's the same for Akina. I got into this not for money. I got into it because it was something I was interested in. And someone like me, if I start getting paid to work on my blog, I'll probably become complacent. I'll probably actually be like, oh, well, they're going to pay me anyway, so I can write a review whenever I want. But when I'm actually like, these are the posts I want, this is what I want to do, it's something that I'm passionate about. And for me, I think once it becomes about money, I will lose it, because I have a day job, and I put all my focus on that. And this blog is for me to escape from my day job. So monetizing it will then make me have to find another reason to escape.
And let me add that because you've touched. When I say, like, I have a list, I'm partial to African women writers. And I am so aware that in terms of people consistently talking about African women writers, it's probably me and her, right? So I have a list, and the other day, Loretta Nkobo died. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't even gotten to her, you see? So it's not an issue of, because I grew up within a community I want people to read about, I want their works to be represented, I want their works to be framed in a certain way. And it is what I want to do. So yeah, money would be nice, but I do not see that I will be any more serious or any more committed to it than I am right now. Because these women writers of Africa, they are my whole world. So I don't know.
Yeah, and as I said at the beginning, these are blogs that have been running for 5 years. I mean, these are serious spaces. Any more questions not about money? I see one over there.
Well, oh yeah, you know, yeah, I'm kind of hesitant about responding because, oh yeah, I mean, that question doesn't apply to me, I suppose, because there's no way we need money, right? Like we need to, I won't answer that because I'm looking for ways to raise money, right? Of course you can't dedicate, we've been doing this for 6 years, from publishing all these things for free, and at a certain point you want to take it to the next level. You want it to matter. You want it to become something central to the African literary or the Nigerian literary experience. You want it to be part of cultural conversations. And you want to organize events. You know, you have a new issue, you want to organize events. Those things don't come by labor of love. Damia and I mean, one of the greatest stories of our time in Saraba is that in 2010, the Guardian UK wrote about Saraba as part of, or one of the writers wrote about Saraba as the Renaissance, you know, happening in African literature. And our site was down, right? We couldn't pay our fees, you know. We just, you know, went to console ourselves that we are remembered in Guardian UK. And so that can't continue. That doesn't make any sense, right? You need to improve. If more people visit your site, you need to enlarge your bandwidth. All those things cost money, and it's a different kind of conversation than if you're a blogger. You are trying to be a cultural institution, you know.
Yeah. Okay, over there.
On a lighter note, my name is Mariam Ali from Kano. How did you come about the names of your blogs, like Saraba Magazine? How did it come about? And Bookshire, and yes, how did you come about it? What's in the name anyway?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, what's in the name? But I actually found out something fascinating about Saraba. So when we founded Saraba, Dami and I were thinking, oh, we want to start this magazine, right? And a friend of ours had written this poem. You know how when you're young, you're writing these poems and you invoke some strange things, you don't know what it means, just to make it sound poetic. So this guy invokes Saraba, right? And it's like, Saraba, and it sounds nice. And Dami and I say, oh, Saraba, that sounds like a good name for a magazine. And that becomes the name of our magazine. And then we say, oh, let's check what this means. And we check, and it means something very strange in Japanese. And we're like, oh, let's not tell anybody it means anything in Japanese. And then I go to Senegal, and they tell me that Saraba means utopia. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, yeah, you know, this is exciting that, you know, Saraba means something, like, this is a place that every, you know, Senegalese sings about, oh, we are going to Saraba. You know, there's this great famous song in Senegal about Saraba. And I'm like, yeah, we did the right thing. We kind of prophesied in, you know.
When I decided to start a blog, when I looked around, I mean, a lot of people who were writing about the sort of books, not necessarily all African. One of them was Amy Reeds. And as a reader, it just seemed like the natural thing to say, Kina Reeds. So that was just very simple. And now people think that my last name is Reeds, which is, which is nice. But it wasn't anything. It was just about my reading, yeah.
Mine was a play on words. The first one was reflecting myself as a child. I was so shy, I used to escape through books. And now that I'm older, my shelf is always one book shy of a book. So it's pretty much just what I did.
Okay, we haven't got much more time, but we have time for, yeah, one or maybe two questions if they're quick. Okay. Yeah, this man with the white shirt.
I'm Emmanuel from Cameroon. I've heard you guys talk about the reviews, the books. I don't know when you blog or you review books, because with me, when I talk of book, I would talk about anything in paper covered with a bag, generally. An exercise book is another. But I'm talking about genres, like poetry, drama. Now, are you attracted to a particular genre, or is it everything? And I used to find poetry really scary. Like, if there was one thing that would make me fail in an exam, it would be poetry. But now that's my best area, I just love it. So do you people review anything book in terms of genre, or are you attracted to a particular area?
My home genre is literary fiction, and sort of anything outside of literary fiction or in literary fiction inspired by Octavia Butler, which means therefore all speculative fiction by black women and science fiction. I'm also that's what I do, literary fiction. I will also review short stories, either as an anthology or standalone, because I really like short stories. And then I make an effort to post a poem once a week. Sometimes I may review a poetry collection that I like. So basically, that there's a Ghanaian writer who has written a political thriller, which I reviewed. Typically, I wouldn't review a political thriller, but we do so few of that on the continent that if it is a new genre that I think I need to draw people's attention to, or we need more of that, then I'll review it. And that goes the same with nonfiction. I read nonfiction, but I don't typically review it, so it depends on the subject matter. If it's by an African woman, or if it's something about Africa, I will do that, or the Caribbean. So, yeah.
I read nonfiction for my day job, so I, as a rule, don't review nonfiction on my blogs. I'm obsessed, as I said, with fantasy, speculative fiction, graphic novels, and comics. So that is usually my go-to, but I do a lot of fiction. I'm also very particular with specific types, so I do a lot of women writers. I'm also conscious that I'm Nigerian. I try a lot to diversify and not only focus on Nigerian fiction. So I will quicker review books from other African countries and then review Nigerian books. I will do poetry if I'm contacted with someone about a good poetry collection. Short stories, anthologies, novellas, and I also do online reviews. So anthologies such as Jalada, I will review Omenana, which is a speculative fiction magazine, I'll review. Honestly, whatever I find interesting, I'll review.
No, I mean, maybe talking, no, I don't think, no, there's nothing to say, really.
Okay, well, I'm afraid, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. It's been a great conversation, so thank you to Ake for allowing us a space to talk about this. Thank you to our great panelists. And I'm sure that, yeah, these are conversations that will continue by us reading your blogs. And they could continue now via Twitter using the hashtag #AkeFest15. Thank you.
Thank you.
Media, group photo, please. Just so you know, in about 2 minutes, don't worry, it's going to happen 5 times during the festival. You're going to be able to get the books on the Etisalat Prize for Literature long list. They'll be going for 1,000 naira. Wait. Secondly, you might not have read about what we're doing in collaboration with the British Council. If you're interested in getting 30,000 naira in book tokens to spend at the Ake Festival bookstore. If you look around, walk around, I'm not going to tell you where these are, but there's one up front. There are 9 banners with poetry, with 9 different poets. You basically create a collage with 4 of those. You take a selfie and you create a collage with 4 different banners and you tweet it with the right hand.